Hello, everybody. I am J.Silver, and I am here to talk about manga, manhwa, webtoons, whatever you're going to call it. I'm going to call them comics. If you don't know me, I haven't been making YouTube videos in a while. This is going to be my comeback video. I am a English professor, and I write fantasy, sci-fi, both in book and novel and screenplay form. So, what do I want to focus on in the upcoming future? Well, I love webtoons. I love comics. They're what I grew up on. They're a pastime for me. I still read them and enjoy them as much as I can. And I thought it would be really fun to analyze webtoons or comics in a way that I, as a writer, am equipped to do. So I could talk about the pros and cons of a book, why I continue to read it, why I maybe would drop it, maybe why I would wait and come back to it later, etc. So I'm going to start with a really popular one, Omniscient Reader's Viewpoint. I love this book. I'm reading it currently, have been reading it since its release, not considering dropping it at all. I think it's one of the best ones currently out there. In also hype news, it's actually getting an anime adaptation sometime this spring, I believe. So that's something to look forward to as well. If you are someone who you prefer watching instead of reading, this one is actually getting an adaptation. So I would go up there. I would keep a lookout for that. Now, this synopsis, quotation marks, this is a development that I know of. The moment he thought that the world had been destroyed, a new universe had unfolded. The new life of an ordinary reader begins within the world of the novel, a novel that he alone had finished. This is kind of a bad synopsis. I think better ones are just like explaining the main character and who they are and what the general gist of the plot is. I don't think I'm going to keep this video spoiler free, and then I'll make another one that you can watch if you don't mind spoilers, where I give a little bit more detail in what's going on. The main gist of Omniscient Reader's Viewpoint is that the main character reads a book, like a web novel, just like you're reading, just like this basically, except he's reading a novel, not a comic, and such a long running novel. Think of like one of the longest running, serialized comics you could think of, One Piece, etc. Imagine it being so long, and it's not necessarily the most popular one, that by the time the last chapter comes out, he is the only one who has been reading the book still. There are other people that made it a decent amount into the story, but he was the only one to have read the final chapter. And when he reads it, it's a bittersweet loss for him. And that's basically where the story begins. And the events of the book from chapter 1 start playing out in the real world. And he realizes that he is now, like, the story that he just read and spent years of his life reading is now happening in real life. And he has to figure out how to survive, take advantage of the knowledge he knows, and keep the story going in the same direction, so that he, can see the ending that he kind of wants for the story, right? So that's kind of the gist of the story. It kind of takes a lot of the current genre tropes that you may be familiar with, things like gates, like solo leveling, things like constellations or gods, like sponsoring humans in the apocalypse. It takes a lot of those like genre tropes that you may be like familiar with in specifically in Korean manhwa. It takes a lot of these genre tropes and it kind of puts a twist on like every single one of them. So even though you're reading it and things are a lot like very familiar to you, it's also very fresh at the same time, which is something that I really, really enjoy when I read. It's like a really positive sign of good writing. I can't stress that enough, that it's a very smart, very cleverly designed plot and world where kind of everything is familiar but fresh, which A+. I don't do S tier. I just do A+. best grade. I'm a professor. That's my final grade. Art is pretty good. I'm not gonna say that it's the best thing I've ever seen, but it's also way above the average. So I would put it like on a scale of 1 to 10. It's gonna get like an 8.5 to a 9.5 in art for me. That's my personal preference. It's all color. Most manhwa nowadays is, but this is, I would say, a top tier story and art. So to me, this is like a final verdict. Recommend highly to check out if you like. It's definitely like kind of the shonen category. I would say its age range maybe like a little higher than something like One Piece or Naruto. Like it's probably targeting like a slightly older demographic. I'm not sure where I would place it. Probably not like middle school, maybe high school, or maybe like young adult is probably what it's targeting. But if you're a longtime fan, I'm way past that age and I still enjoy reading these types of things. So, no shame if you're a lover of these things. But I would say it's definitely like a shonen style, like a book. So if you're someone who loves action stories, adventure stories, fantasy stories, this is kind of right up your alley. That's what the genre tags are. I think that describes it pretty perfectly. The only other thing I would say is like, like I can't harp on the story enough. Oftentimes in these post-apocalyptic stories where like gods are choosing people, etc., it's a really basic power fantasy is what the story is kind of giving, and there's nothing wrong with that. I enjoy a basic power fantasy sometimes, but this is like so much more than that. It's like the characters are very, not just the main character, but the side character cast all are pretty well fleshed out. And they're not super one-dimensional, at least yet. And that brings me to my only kind of worry, is that, and this is kind of a writing thing that I'm going to try to explain, is that sometimes when you have really high concept worlds, which is pretty much almost all of manga, manhwa, like webcomics, like all of these types of things that we love to read, they're really high concept. They deal with like rules outside of Earth's standard rules. A lot of times they may not even be on Earth. Whenever you're doing this, you have to do extreme world building to explain these rules that make the world operate to your reader, right? And one of the avenues a writer has to do that is through side characters. So like if your main character doesn't know how something interacts with, they can have another character who does understand it interact with the main character and can explain a piece of the world without just telling, right? So like I'm sure many people have heard the term show don't tell. That's something, you may think like, well, in a book, how would you show something? Well, you have like characters do things to demonstrate what you're trying to get across instead of just having like characters dialogue things back and forth to each other.
And you end up
so one way to do that
skills.
is to have a character that does know how the world operates do something to demonstrate to the main character what's going on, or vice versa, right? So actually in this book, the main character knows everything.
There's a lot of things that are important to the XP rate.
So
your outfit is super important.
Of kind of a lot of things that the other characters are experiencing the first
also,
time. And
there's like a party system, and like the more people you can get in the same outfit, the like more XP multipliers you get.
It's very interesting, but. So, this can be a problem.
They really thought it out. They have a very
your continued avenue as your world expands is just introducing more and more side characters. Because as you introduce, as your roster of side characters
you're only allowed
grows
to stay
exponentially
for 6 hours,
as you go from arc to arc to arc. You have less time with the side characters, so they end up becoming more and more one-dimensional because you don't have time to flesh out each side character anymore. And when you have older side characters show up, they like normally are just a one-dimensional showing, and you lose a lot of any development they got in there when they first appeared. And that would be kind of my worry in the future. Now, I haven't seen anything particularly like this that we have 244 chapters. It doesn't seem like it's going to end anytime soon. So I would imagine we have a decent amount of more chapters to go. But you never really know with these things. Like, for all I know, this arc ends with a crazy ending and just ties up everything. But I would imagine it doesn't end for a very long time. My worry would just be, even though I don't see like anything like that happening currently, every arc does introduce new side characters that he uses to do what I kind of just explained. And so if we're at 244 now, if he continued like his current style of writing at 500, it would probably become an issue, where the side characters would kind of be at a much like lesser degree, whereas currently they're really powerful. Like, they're very strong characters. I don't want to say powerful, and that's the kind of the wrong word, but like they're very like well-rounded 3D like three-dimensional characters, opposed to like one note characters. So I would just worry that, like, my only worry is that if they continue with their current writing style, that would happen going forward. So that's my little lecture on writing and my thoughts on Omniscient Reader's Viewpoint. If you want to check out the video with spoilers, click ahead. Otherwise, like and subscribe. Check out Omniscient Reader's Viewpoint. Check for the anime in the future. Good luck, everybody. Have fun out there.